Do you need a physical therapist?
Yeah, we're gonna do all that. Bezrat Hashem. Let's put on the recording here. Okay. And here, okay, excellent. Let's bring up the text. All right, we're learning a Sicha. We learned a Sicha before. This is famous talk the Rebbe gave on the week of Parshas Terumah in the year 1992, Tafshin Beis, when the last talks we have of the Rebbe before he suffered a stroke. And the Rebbe spoke that year in Parshas Terumah very strongly about the idea of Ashiras, words that are not typical in the Jewish circles by a Rebbe, I don't think in any times. The Rebbe spoke very strong about that the Jews have to be rich and Ashiras, and that's why the Torah starts with Zahav, with gold, to be able to perform Torah mitzvahs and tzedakah in abundance without having any concerns in paying school fees or being mahadra mitzvahs, glorifying the mitzvahs, giving tzedakah as much as you want. The Rebbe was very much in the opinion of that successful Jews and wealthy Jews are Jews that are able to perform Torah mitzvahs on a much higher level, although there's challenges in all cases, but it's better to have challenges and be able to perform than challenges and not being able to perform. The Rebbe spoke very strongly about this Shabbos, and so let's start. They put together all the talks from the week with Shabbos in a single Sicha. That's what this Sicha. This is a Sicha from Leila Seish Charna, from the nights of Wednesday night Dalid Hey Vav, which would be Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and Shabbos Kodesh. So going into Wednesday, going into Thursday, going into Friday, and the Shabbos Terumah Tafshin Beis, the year 1992. So the Rebbe says like this: Paischin bebracha. We're going to start with blessing. Ubefrat ba'amdanu, when we're standing b'tchilas b'achnisis l'chodesh Adar. Well, now the beginning of Adar, because now this is the same layout that we're talking about. Gimel Daled Hey Vav Adar. Sheyeshne atzivay v'adin, and the law is the commandment. Mishenichnas Adar marbin b'simcha. As Adar comes in, we add in simcha, right? So we have more simcha as Adar comes in. And this month is Bari Madli D'Yisrael. It's a healthy mazal, a healthy mazal for the Jewish people. Everyone knows what mazal is. The Mela movement, so it's understood. Shebnei Yisrael misbarchim az b'miyuchad b'brachas. This is a very special time for the Jewish people to be blessed with blessings, because we're in a month of luck, of mazal, and we're in a month of Adar, which is Mar B'Simcha. Yisayim Rizeh, the Rebbe says more than this. Issa B'Gemara, the Talmud teaches us. Yeshem shenichnas of mematim b'simcha. Just like when one enters the month of we lessen simcha, joy. Kach mishenichnas Adar Mar B'Simcha. So too we add with joy when it comes to Adar, like we learned last week. Hilkach Bar Yisrael di Islay Dinay Behadi Nachri. If you have a court that you have to do with a Gentile, Yishtamit Binay Ba'av Dirai Mazal. Try not to do it on Av, because your luck isn't doing great. Your mazal isn't great. It's not a good time to go to court with a Gentile. Better do it in the month of Adar, the Bari mazal, when a Jewish person's mazal is healthy. Bari means healthy. The Rebbe says one could ask the question: what's the Gemara saying that just like in Av, the same ideas we learned last week, we lessen the simcha, so too in Adar we add to simcha. The Chure Harze Mimayet is Goydel Simcha B'Chodesh Adar. So here the Rebbe points out another thing. Why would we talk about Av in Adar? It just makes a person depressed, right? It's like when you don't mention negative things. Now I want to focus on positive. I want to focus on healthy. I want to focus on happiness. Why are we mentioning in the month of Adar about Av? So the Rebbe says like this: the Adar Rebbe. This is on the contrary. Lashon Chazal Kashem Shenichnas Av Ematim B'Simcha Kach Mishenichnas Adar Mar B'Simcha. When Chazal teaches us that just like in Av we lessen in joy, happiness, so too in Adar we add in happiness. It comes to teach us Shemiyat HaSimcha B'Chodesh Av Hu B'Oisei Toichin Sheribi HaSimcha B'Chodesh Adar. That they have to the lacking of happiness in Av has to be the same amount of the adding of simcha in Adar, to shame, because that's what we say just as. שכן כוונס ותחס מיעוט השמחה בחודש אב היא רק בכדי להפכים מחשך ומרירס למתיקו. He says, because the whole point of the bitterness of Av, or so to say, the unhappiness of Av, is to be able to turn from the darkness of Av to the sweetness of Adar, or the sweetness of Torah, or happiness. And how do we turn Av, which was negative or less happy, into turning it around from darkness to light? Is through being happy in Adar. That means, how do you get rid of the negative things of Av? Is when you add happiness in others. So Adar actually is very much connected to Av. Because if you're just going to cut yourself off from the reality of the negative and say, right now is a happy time, I'll deal with the problems of Av at another time, so you're not going to help Av. The point of being happy in Adar is that use that happiness to help Av, to turn what's negative in Adar and Av into also happiness. We turn around the negative of Av, the fact that we have to lessen the simcha, i.e. the destruction of the temple, the negative of mazal, of our luck, of chodesh Av, to positive. The Rebbe says it's moving is understood. So this helps a person be happy in Adar. Because if a person knows that not only is my happiness a moment right now, that now I'm happy, but my happiness now causes that all the negative things in my life, i.e. like the month of Av, turn into positive. So that's going to make me even more happy. If I know that if a person thinks, okay, now I have an isolated moment of happiness, I'm going to cut off my troubles, I'm going to be happy. But I know that tomorrow I'm going to wake up, I'm going to have to deal with my miserable situation. So then how happy could you really be? But when you know that as happy as you are now in Adar, it's going to affect the negative of Av, turning around the negative of Av to also be happy. So then you're going to turbo your happiness in Adar because you want to use that energy to transform the negative of Av. There's the Rebbe says, not only do we have the happiness of Adar on its own to bring revealed happiness, but also a person has especially joy. That this is an opportunity to transform the negatives of your life. So not just that you have an experience of happiness, but you're using the power of this happiness to overflow into all the negative situations in your life, that those should also turn out, like the month of Av. We get rid of the miut of the negative through simcha. The famous idea is, I think it's a Rishon, I forget who says it. The one that Tzaddikim says that Av is mema'at. How do we get rid of the things of Av? Is b'simcha. Where's the simcha? Simcha's from Adar.
But why do we need to have a manipulation of our emotions? Either way, I mean, maybe it's better not to be manipulated by external dates.
No, that's actually, I think it's contrary. I disagree.
And ideas that we're supposed to be unhappy, we're supposed to be happy, and the word.
No, I disagree. The Rebbe is not subscribing to what you're saying. You're subscribing to the norm. The norm is be happy in times of happiness, be sad in times of sadness, and leave everything as is. Like you said, don't manipulate. You use a perfect word. Don't manipulate the negative with the positive.
No, but I'm saying it doesn't even have to go by those times. I mean, okay, the temple was destroyed, but I don't have to have that ruin my mood.
It does, because the fact is that Judaism is present, not past. We don't celebrate anything for the past. The Yom Tovim, the holidays, maybe we talk about it as in a past sense. But the idea is we have to Judaism is to be living the present. When you sit by the Seder, you're feeling redemption now. So the idea of Av is that the destruction is now. Like the Rebbe always quoted the Yerushalmi that says that whoever the temple wasn't built in their time is as if it's destroyed in their time. If you haven't transformed,
I mean, it's using these thoughts to manipulate your emotions. So I don't know why that's. I don't know why we need that at all. Either way.
Because I'll tell you why. Because the Rebbe says, I'm going to answer this. Because the Rebbe says that the reality is that there's a negative, and the negative is that you have the situation of Av. And Av that's a destruction, and that's a reality now. It's not a reality from 2,000 years ago. Right now, the temple's been destroyed. Right now, we're in Gullus. How do you transform that negative, which is a reality right now, is by being happy now. It's not just that you're happy now, and therefore you're manipulating a feeling and ignoring the destruction. You're going to transform that by the time Av comes next year, this coming year, we're going to be in Geula.
Like you're trying to use the intellectualizing these things to manipulate your emotions.
No, I just want to say one thing. Every year, there's the month that your parents died. If they died, you get emotional. So why wouldn't you get emotional over some of the biggest things in Judaism?
No.
People get emotional for different reasons.
Sean is not saying that you shouldn't subscribe to the sadness above. She's saying is not to use other things to try to transform that. But the Rebbe doesn't agree with you. The Rebbe says that the simcha is a very powerful tool, and when you know that through simcha you can not just have simcha now, but simcha breaks together, breaks all the boundaries. It also breaks the boundaries of the negative above, and therefore, what does it mean? It breaks boundaries. There's nothing to be sad about. Why? Because we're going to rebuild the base of Mikdash. All right, let's go further. I hear what you're saying. The Rebbe is like this. Not only be happy for Adar on its own, is Gamma Simcha. We're also happy that we know that through this happiness, we get rid of the negative. That these are the things that cause Simcha to lessen in happiness. Famous idea in Chassidus that when Yitzchak asked Yaakov, or sleep thinking he's talking to Esau, to make him the food, the meal, it says, Asli matamim, make me a tasteful. Matamim is plural. Which is, what does it mean, matamim plural? Seemingly, okay, make me a few nice dishes, right? When Chassidus explains that there's two tasteful things. There's tasteful from the positive, and there's tasteful from transforming the negative into positive. That's all I did is hapcha. Hapcha is all about transformation. Lashon Rabim, why is it plural? Also includes the tasteful things, which is the or yasher, the direct light. The idea of happiness of Adar on its own, the happy time. We got rid of Haman. We're going to get rid of Haman this year as well. And also from the bitter things, right? People like some bitter, in Israel they call it charif, sharp things, or chamutzim, or vinegary things. They're spiced in such a way. People also like there's the pleasure in bitter foods, in sharp foods. What's the pleasure here? Yitzchak says the hishapcha, to transform the inyanim of the things of l'nahira to light, umutikos to sweetness. It continues. From this we'll understand what's the idea of being multiplying simcha. Moving dafkum sechtas tainas. Where do we learn about this? How do we know that we're supposed to be happy in Adar? Is from the tractative tainas. In the same subject, we're talking about the negative of above, about the laws of the tinus, the fasts above. There we learn about the idea of the happiness of Purim. Why? Also the laws that it says you have to be left happy enough. Why? Because it's telling us specifically that's the remedy to fix it. Therefore, the Rebbe says it's even more of a blissful time in our gathering now. To bless all things. The idea that we have the opportunity to transform all negative things in our life. The bracha, the simcha, to blessing and happiness. Ad le bracha achi ikris, and what is the greatest of all blessings? Binyan shazman grama, which is the most important thing of our times. The brachas geula amitis vashlema, that we should have the bracha of the true redemption. Aidei Mashiach tzedkenu, through righteous Mashiach. Geshetiyah shlemes hasimcha. Then when Mashiach comes, it's going to be the completion of all happiness. Like it says, Oz dimal is chayk pinoi. Then our mouth is going to be filled with happiness. V'shlemes the bari mazal, and we're going to have the completeness of our mazal, of our healthy mazal, the Bnei Yisrael of the Jewish people. V'shlemes is hapcha shaychel naira. And Mashiach comes, it's going to be a completion of the transformation of darkness to light. Umeriris, from bitterness, lamsikos to sweetness. Rebbe says, Haschalas chodesh Adar charla kam shanim yeshvu the Parshas Terumah. Many times, the month of Adar, the entry, the Rosh Chodesh Adar, comes together with the Parsha of Terumah. Based on what's known. The Parshas Terumah. We always know the Rebbe quotes. I think it starts with the Shlah HaKadosh, that the holidays are connected to the Parshas of the week. What's the connection of the two ideas that we spoke about? One, that when Adar comes in, we have happiness, and that we have a healthy mazal with the Parsha of Terumah. In general, Terumah is connected to the whole month of Adar. Specifically, this year, how Rosh Chodesh falls out. Incidentally, how it fell out in 1992 is how it fell out this year in 2026. The Rebbe says like this. First of all, okay, this part is not applicable right now to us exactly, at least in a revealed way. that year, 1992, was a leap year. Therefore, in 1992, they had 2 months of Adar because there was 30 months. It was a leap year. Okay. Now we're at the beginning of the first Adar. Beis, that's number one. Number two is Hayom Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon. This year, when did Rosh Chodesh fall out? The Rosh Koil B'Teicha Manig is called Yimei Chodesh, and the way things fall out in the beginning of the month sets the tone for the month. That's why it's called Rosh, not Chila. That's a rule in general in Torah. That the beginnings of something like Rosh Hashanah is not called Chilas Hashanah, but Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because like the Rosh, the head it has within it all the energy of the body. So too, the Rosh Chodesh has within it the entire energy of the month. When did it fall out? That year. Also, this year is Gimel Dal B'Shavua on the Tuesday and Wednesday of the week. Right? This week Rosh Chodesh was Tuesday and Wednesday. Jeff says humans have behagdim understand. Dear Parshas something about the Rebbe pointed out very much that year. The idea in this parsha. When Hashem commanded the Jewish people, in the beginning of our parsha, it says, take from me a truma. What truma means, a donation. This is the truma you should take. From the Jewish people. God told Moshe. Gold, silver, and copper. Incidentally, anyone who's following commodities knows that the prices of gold, silver, and copper have shot through the roof in the past year. Getting ready for Mashiach because we're going to need it for the base of Migdash. Is known the question. The order doesn't make sense. Why would God tell them first gold? What's the point of the question? We know the rule. We go from light to heavy. So first you say copper, which is cheaper metal. Then you go to silver, which is more expensive. Then you go to gold, which is extremely expensive. Why would you start with the most expensive thing and go down? You're supposed to go from light to heavy. Let me do opposite. Not only should you give copper, you should give silver. Not only should you give silver, you should give gold. In our case, the Chura Matim say there's a oides. It makes more sense to start with copper versus gold. Everyone has to give a donation to the temple. Everyone has to donate. I mean, it's talking about all types of people in all kind of tax brackets, right? There's still a difference between poor and rich. Why would you start with the most expensive commodity that's left available to the poorer people? We start with something that everyone has more available, copper. And then you can say the people that can afford the gold, they give the gold. Why don't you start with something and make the poor person feel a little bad? Not everyone was equal. People gave different amounts. Whoever gave whatever they could afford. They should have started with either silver or copper. It's more available for the people. How many people have gold sitting in their house? When Mashiach comes and they're going to build a base of Migdash, they're going to need gold. You have to go to Costco and start buying the gold little things that they're selling over there. That's available by all the Jewish people. There's more copper and silver. So most more equal in the economic situation. People could afford copper more. Only then you come to gold. The rich people have gold. Gold is not found by everyone, especially at $5,000 an ounce. When it came to anything else, any other donation besides the gold, it went according to what was the most available. So first we started with actual tangible money, because most people had money, whatever the money would be, whether it's gold, silver, or copper, metals. Everyone gave whatever they had available to give. They gave it from their gold, copper, and silver. Gold, silver, and copper. Only afterwards we come to Tchelis, Artman, Tulashanu, Vishesh Vizim, Oris Elim, Adam, Oris Tchashim, the other things not everyone had. Not because they couldn't afford it. Not everyone travels with Tchelis and Argamon and Tulashani. Tulashani is the kind of special worm, right? Oris Elim, Oris Tchashim, these are kind of skins. You have to have it. So that's why we went to those things. It's only people who had it that donated it. You didn't have it, you couldn't donate it. If you had Tchelis on you, you gave it, you brought it. Only a few people had chelis on them. Atzei Shitim, and only afterwards we came to Atzei Shitim. Called Isha Nimse Itai. Also, Rashi is the Shitim. The Rebbe talks very strongly that the Evan Ezra said he went, and other Mepharshim said they went and bought it from the local markets. But the Rashi is not of that opinion. Rashi says they had everything from the Mishkan. They traveled with it. They even had Atzei Shitim. They had the cedar woods. Very few people had the cedar woods. Who was traveling with cedar woods? Even though they had a commandment from Yaakov Avinu, but how many people actually left the country with cedar woods? But Shemin Lamor. Also, they had to travel with special qualified oil for the menorah. Also, very few people traveled with that. Avnei Shayim, and even the most difficult thing to find was the special stones for the breastplate. Avnei Meluyim. Only the princes had that available, and even that we know they were not sure how they had it, whether the angels brought it. That the Pasha God had to send special clouds to bring these stones, that it wasn't available. That's why they're mentioned last. So in the order of the metals, even though that was most available, but of the metals themselves, Zav should have been mentioned last, not first. We have to assume less people had gold than they had copper and silver. The Rebbe says 1 second. The Jewish people had gold and silver. Why? Obviously they had gold and silver. They donated it. They had it from the spoils of Egypt that they took out with them, and from the spoils of the sea. It wasn't any person that didn't have 90 donkeys carrying gold and silver. So if everyone had it, I mean, because God told Moshe to tell everyone to take money out of Egypt. Where did they get it from? They had to take it from someone. They took it from the Egyptians. So you have to assume that the Egyptians had more copper and silver than they had gold. So you have to still assume gold is a commodity. It's an expensive commodity. Less people have it. So no matter where they're getting their monies from, wherever they're taking it from, they had more silver and copper than they would have of gold. It's much hard to find gold than it is to find copper and silver. But Adar, the Rebbe says the contrary. That's why we pay so much for it, because it's rare. And definitely there was the difference in not everyone was equally wealthy, right? There's an expression, those who know it from the shtetl, called Reich wie Korach, rich as Korach. Why? Because Korach was specifically rich. Why was he richer than everyone else? That's the way it is. Some people are richer, some people are not. So they never say like this. He's saying more than this. We have to assume the Jewish people took out from Egypt more copper than silver, more silver than gold. Also, the amount of copper and silver were much more than the amount of gold that was donated to the Mishkan. So the bottom line is, why would you mention it first? It didn't even come in an abundance in actual weight. The Super Barambanis Nachmanides says, "B'chol isha asher heinif knupas zahav lehayu rabim kimerime aketz v'nchoishes lehaita ram zahav meruba keketz v'nchoishes." The Ramban says that the amount of silver and copper was much more than the amount of gold. But Talmud Pasha said the obvious reason is they needed Pasha more copper and silver than they needed of gold. Like we learn later in Parshas Terumah when we do the counting. So again, the question gets more. If they only got less gold, and if they only got and if they had available silver and copper, why does the Torah start with Zahav? Is again, you can't say the Torah is going with what's most important, even if it's less available and less donated. And gold is the most expensive, even more than copper and silver. So you can't say that one is because Avnei Shoyim and Avnei Meluim, the stones were more expensive than the gold. So you can't say we start with gold because it's most expensive. Base, the second reason is, the main reason is, when it came to donating, it wasn't about saying what's most valuable. It was about practical. Donate what's practical available. Then both these things in practical Gold and silver and copper were more, and therefore should have mentioned it first. The Rebbe asks, we have to ask, the main question the Rebbe asks is, what's the lesson to us? What do we have to know from the Torah? That the first thing that the God asked them to donate was the gold. That was getting to a point. We could say the ideas like this. There's this general question we could ask about the Mishkan. As these were coming to the Mishkan, LaHashem, Hoysa, Tali, Bechol, B'nai Yisrael, Hein Atziv El Nidvis Mishkan, Hoy L'chol Yehudi, V'ikli Tirumeh Kol Ish. The idea of the Mishkan was for every Jewish person. First of all, the donations, everyone had to donate. You couldn't come in and say, oh, what a beautiful Mishkan. Thank you, everyone, for donating. Everyone had to participate. Gam L'Nashim, even the women. But Yovar Nashim, Al Nashim, not only that, the women donated more, stronger, and willingly than the men. Achikam Taf Ishtatvu B'nidvis Mishkan. Even the children came with their little banks, the little coins, and donated to the Mishkan. Because to show you that the kids also had some cash. The Gamat Sivir Latisa Mishkan, Vasli Migdash, V'shachanti B'sacham, Uchiyav Akol Yehudi. And also that the commandment to make a base of Migdash, not just to donate it, to make it, is a commandment of every Jew. As the Rambam says, Hakol Chayavim Livnes V'lisa'id Ba'atzmam. Everyone has an obligation to build. It's not just for a building committee. Everyone has to participate. Themselves, make themselves available. With their money, men, women, like they did in the desert. Everyone has an obligation. So too when Mashiach comes. The Rebbe says what we have to understand. One second. So we have to understand what's the idea that everyone participates, everyone gives the money, everyone has to build. We find something unique about the Beit HaMikdash, or the Mishkan, that there was nothing like this before. God never said something like this before. That in a house, here in this world, that has 4 walls, right? That's the Beit HaMikdash. The Beit HaMikdash is like a house. It's a place. It's a bias. That's where I'm going to rest amongst the Jewish people. Never heard such a thing before. Like it talks about it, when he says the Navi, he means over here Shlomo Melech. Like Shlomo Melech says, Hashemayim v'shmei shemayim leichalchucha, that when the heavens can't contain God, the essence. The dafke b'bayis says and when the house of the Beit HaMikdash you can. He hashar sashchina, that's where Hashem rests. When aditi shamal b'nei Yisrael, that's where I'm going to make myself known to the Jewish people as the Beit HaMikdash. That's a chiddush gadol. We take it for granted. We say Beit HaMikdash. Shlomo Melech, when he built the first temple, said, Shemayim v'shmei shemayim leichalchucha. The heavens can't contain God. God is way beyond the creation because He's infinite. The world's finite, but the infinite is found. We're in the Beit HaMikdash in a specific place, and that's why we have the Machlekes, the Rambam, and the Ramban. The Fizeh Haitzach Lahavin Lechura. They live in this Mishkan Hashem. So if we're building a house for God, this new chiddush, this is something unique that never happened before. That a house, a physical house, that's what God's going to be. The kukum lanoshim na'im b'yosef. We would have to choose only great people that are able to do it. Big tzaddikim. Bein b'nei Yisrael. She'eshna mekoychem la'atzis b'ayis k'zeh. Who's able to build such a house for God? Shashchina tishrav is this galabay that God should rest and reveal Himself. Kivi shehoya b'negei le'etzem asiyas mishkan, like the actual planning itself. Shinasai de Bitzalel. At the end of the day, God chose Bitzalel, right, from the tribe of Yehuda. B'maloi seruch halikim. He had a special wisdom to know how to do it with Eliyav. And exactly how Hashem showed Moshe, that's how it has to be done specifically. We see that you needed unique people. Nevertheless, although at the end the Tzal maybe was just the architect, but God says everyone has to donate and everyone has to be involved. Like the Rambam says, everyone's obligated. It's not an obligation just for B'tzalel over other people. Hena Nashim, whether it's men, Nashim, women, the Gamtaf, even children. How can you expect from a simple person, a simple woman, I feel yelled cotton, even a child, as a koyach, the strength, the ability, to make something that never happened before. That God should find Himself in a physical house, in a physical space. He rests amongst the Jewish people. Every single individual. How could every single person, no matter who they are, build a Beit HaMikdash? Like Shlomo Melech says, it's such a chiddush. It never happened before. The heavens can't contain Hashem, and here we have a house. Rabbi says that. He says. Not only that, you have to give it for the right purpose. You have to give it lishmi, for God, for the sake of heaven. Just like when you give the temple, the build a temple has to be for the sake of God. It's not good enough to actually just do the action. That's the you have to have the right intentions for the right purpose, for the sake of God. And how could you ask a civil person to have 100% the right focus? Avoid lishma. It has to be with 100%. The avoid has to be with the right intentions. The tachlis hashlem is not just a little bit. It has to be absolutely with 100% right intentions, not just a little bit. And then, how can you say that every single man, woman, and child could be 100% with the right kavanah to do it for 100% lishma? I mean, people. The Rambam writes, which we're learning now the laws of Tshuva. That's what we're holding. What's the highest level of lishma for the sake of Hashem? It's not even for spiritual gain. It's mamish just because you love Hashem. Like the Rambam says, you do the truth because that's the truth. Not because you gain anything out of it, not because you get rewards, not because you can get this world or the next world, you can have a nice place in heaven. That's not why we serve God. We do the truth because the truth is what has to be done. That's a big level. How could you expect everyone to be holding such a level on my dragon? Let's just learn the next Steve, and we're about to finish. The answer like this. When did Hashem say to build the Mishkan? After the giving of the Torah. After, as a continuation, Matan Torah. Shows Nifel. What happened to Matan Torah? Matan Torah was God chose the Jewish people from all other peoples and languages. God chose not the people as a whole only, but the people, each individual. Big idea that Rebbe always talks about. That the people say, okay, I'm part of the chosen people. No, you're a chosen person. God chose every single individual person personally. And in a Jewish body, as a soul, in a physical body, in a physical world. He didn't pick spiritual Jews. You will be a nation of priests and holy people. What can you do as is known? Until Matan Torah you couldn't bridge the gap between heaven and earth. What was in heaven stayed in heaven. What was in earth stayed in earth. But what happened in Matan Torah? No longer was his decree. Therefore, the Jewish people, as they are in this world, were things of elyonim, of elevated. It's every single individual Jew has a portion of God in them. Like the Rebbe quotes for the Baal Shem Tov. If you're touching etzem, by definition, if it's etzem, you can't hold a little bit of etzem. When you touch a little bit of etzem, of essence, you're holding the whole essence, because essence is not found in parts. It's beyond any division. So if you have a drop of essence, which every soul has, then you have the whole God. The Jewish people and God are one. With Matan Torah, and therefore, once Matan Torah established the fact that God chose the Jewish people the way they are here physically in this world, and the way they are physically in this world is really an elevation. The fact is, every single Jew, notwithstanding how the person looks externally, even if that person's a sinner, he's a Jewish person. She's a Jewish person. Everyone has the essential Jew in the in any rights of it, any that's therefore essential. No Jew can or wants to disconnect from God forbid from Elikus, from godliness. As the Rambam says, halacha. Rambam says it halachically that every Jew wants to do what God wants, and he accepts that halachically. Therefore, you could divorce when you force someone, because it's not really force. The person wants to do what he's supposed to do, what she's supposed to do. It's only externally. It's who should talk like the Rambam says. It's only the Yetzer Hara who overwhelms the person, that externally gives the impression that you don't want to do what Hashem wants. It's fair to do. The Rebbe says more than that. I feel Yehudi could say, even if you're doing things without the right intention. Maybe a Rambam a person should do things, even if it seems like you're doing it shalom lishma. You should do it for the right sake. The Rambam says, therefore, when we teach children in education, or the women, the klal ameor, to anyone who's not holding yet, not singling out any group of people, but anyone who's not holding yet in the way of the Shema, they're ready to learn for the right reasons. You start with even fear. Like the Rambam says, until their minds broaden, is chakmo, and they realize, and they get accustomed, and they start to do it out of love. Till they comprehend, do, and they know. This is all quoting from the Rambam. But Tam was, what's the reason? The Rebbe always says, what's it mean? There's two ways to translate the statement. One is that for not having the right reasons, you'll get to the right reasons. The Rebbe says, no, it's deeper than that. Because what's really inside a Jewish person's service that seems like it's not for the right reasons, but because that person, he or she, or even a child, has an essence in them of God, it's really Lishma. They just don't know it yet. When the Rambam says that you reveal the love, it's not that you gain the love. You reveal what's already there. Therefore, we understand that every Jew has the ability to make a Mesa Bigdash. That should be for the right intentions. Because ever since Matan Torah, the Jewish people became a new entity. They became an entity that even though they have a soul in the body in this world, notwithstanding how it seems, the person's level, even if the person's thinking, I'm giving the donation so I should have a big plaque in the temple. And by the way, never mind, they had parts of the temple that were named after people for reasons, right? These are called these doors that this person gave. He did big things. It doesn't mean he did it, or he did it, whoever did it, for the wrong reasons. There were men and women things in the Beis Hamikdash, but there were things that they did, and their names were attributed to those things. But the essence of every person is really lishma for the sake of God, l'shem Hashem, with no agenda, not for any other reason, not because of fear, not for a favor. When the Rambam says this is how you should do it, it's really how you do it. But be in touch with how you're really doing it. Because you think you have an agenda. You don't really have an agenda. The agenda is the thought. You're really doing this to emes because you're a Jew and you have an essence in you. And therefore, every Yid has an ability. And therefore, any Jew can make a Beis Hamikdash. Even like Shlomo Melech says, Shemaim, Shmei Shemaim, the heavens can't. But a Yid is Etzim, and Etzim could do anything. And therefore, every Yid has an ability to make a Beis Hamikdash, even if right now they're not conscious of the ability. And to make a proper reference to Hashem, Mishkan, Migdash, Lavaya, Allah Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, that God should rest amongst the Jewish people. And we're going to stop here, but the Rebbe continues about answering the question of the gold. The Nakud is that everyone has to have gold, and the Rebbe's bottom line is Jewish people have to be rich, so they should be able to serve Hashem properly and should be able to have enough gold. Beis Hamikdash is coming. Get your gold ready, your silver ready. We can all participate, like the Rambam says, in the building of the third Beis Hamikdash. Although it's ready, but God's going to want it's going to be a joint effort. So get ready, Chaver. Get your checkbooks and your gold and silver ready for the donation to the Beis Hamikdash. Thank you so much for joining us. Chodesh Tov, and have a wonderful Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Shabbos.
Bye.
You're welcome.